Penguins have Columbus tomorrow. We have a lot of callers, Gene. You want to get to them?
Let's do it.
Let's go out to McKees Rocks. We got Stush, who's joining us right now live on CW. What's up, Stush?
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
We're good, Stush. How are you?
Good. Great show. Love it.
Thank
Hey,
you.
question for you. You know, the Ducks really performing well, and I have a question. You think if, you know, they keep winning, get to the playoffs, maybe win a playoff game, they realize he's the real deal, they might let Ben go next year so they can keep some of their other players? What do you think?
No. I don't think they'll let Ben go at any. I think what he's doing, though, Stush, is that he's making people believe that he could be in this league, which is something that most evaluators kind of doubted at the beginning of his career. He had to go through a tryout, Gene. He had to do all these things. And Stush, the man's doing what he has to do to make a living for himself right now. He's not making mistakes. Although this week is going to be a little more challenging because Buffalo comes in with a good, very good defense.
Buffalo, the third best defense in the NFL. Stush, you know, quarterbacks' careers end in different ways, but to me, this is not the way Ben's career ends. I mean, he's under contract for a long period of time. I think he'll be back next year, and everyone seems to think that he'll be 100% physically, and he'll be the quarterback. I just don't see any way around that.
Thanks, Stush. Appreciate the call. He'll be on the roster, though, and he's earned an opportunity. If he's not here, he'll be someplace else because he's 3-0 as a starter. Could be 4-0 as a starter if he continues to not make mistakes and just operate within the system, especially with a bunch of, you know, guys who are coming in from all over. I think it's pretty impressive stuff. Let's go to Tom in Aliquippa. Tom, how are you?
Great. How are you guys?
We're good, thanks.
Tom?
Hey, regarding Garrett Cole, I'm wondering if anybody ever posed the question that the last couple of years he was with the Pirates, he kind of went into a little slump. And do you think maybe he was sandbagging to make it easier for him to leave Pittsburgh?
He wanted to leave. He made it pretty clear that he wanted to leave. He didn't have to, you know, he still, you say sandbag. I thought he played and pitched well. It wasn't what he was when he had 19 wins and 8 losses a few years ago, Gene. But no, he wasn't going to be around here. He didn't want to be around here. They knew it.
No, I mean, I never saw Garrett Cole pitch once that I thought he wasn't giving you everything he had. He wasn't always successful. Pitchers aren't always successful. He's won 20 games one time, 19 games one time. But in the modern game, the way the way pitchers are used, that's good enough, and it's good enough for $345 million.
We have this tweet from Just a Random Donk. That's actually his handle. Just a Random
I didn't think
Donk.
it was his name, Bob.
He says, dude, Antonio Brown has got to have CTE, right? You saw what he did today, right, Antonio?
I
Chest,
did.
as I call him.
I did see that, and perhaps you saw the column I wrote about a month ago where I addressed this very thing. I'm through criticizing and making fun of Antonio Brown because, I think something's wrong with him.
So, today I guess you can say he woke up on the wrong side. If it's CTE, he came out with this big apology, though, 2 days ago. And I thought, okay, now he obviously wants to get back in the game, so he's motivated by that. Now, all of a sudden today, if there was any chance of that happening, he ruined it by what he did today, calling Roethlisberger a loser and bringing in race as a problem to the NFL. So,
well, that's one of the symptoms of CTE is the lack of impulse control. And there it is.
Herb in Redford joins us right now. Hello, Herb. Welcome to the Sports Call.
Hi, Bob and Gene. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Hey, I wanted to comment about Pitt basketball. I think Jeff Capel got Pitt on the right path. They hung with Louisville early before Louisville pulled away.
Louisville lost, by the way, last night to Texas Tech, which was a little bit of an upset there.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. And could you comment on the recruits Pitt got coming in next year?
Well, I know that he has gotten a big man. I think Jeff Capel, the one thing I always say about him, if you can recruit Jay-Z to come to the Peterson Event Center, you can recruit anyone to come here to play basketball. That was pretty impressive what he did, remember?
Yeah, I forgot about that, but yeah, that's right.
But I think Jeff Capel's a wonderful, number one, person, number two, coach, and I think, if you ever watch some of the Pitt Live video that they send out on Twitter, you'll realize that, it's sincere with him. He wants these people to come here, believe in this program. They have a wall of bricks. You got to sign one of them, say I'm part of this foundation, and he kind of puts it in his head.
He's done everything right. It's going to take a while. That was a very down program when he took it.
All right, Dave in Bell Vernon is on the line right now. Pittsburgh CW. What's up, Dave?
Hi, Bob and Gene. Always good to hear you guys. I want to ask you,
Appreciate it.
Marvin Miller going in the Hall of Fame. You know, I know if you're an athlete, you love Marvin Miller. But my thoughts are, he might have helped the athletes in a great way. But is he really? How about the fan? How about the fan part? I realize he wasn't representing the fans, but I just wonder all these different positions going into the Hall of Fame. I just don't understand it myself.
A lot of people
How do
agree
you
with
guys feel?
Gene, that's a good question.
Yeah, I never really got the case for Marvin Miller. I mean, he is a brilliant guy. I covered the 1981 strike for 55 days, most of it in New York, and talking to Marvin Miller and watching him present the players' side was really a really impressive thing. And, you know, there's no overstating what he did for the players. That's true. But there are other questions. Did the game improve because of what he did for the players? Did the fan experience improve because of what he did for the players? I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure, but he certainly has an impact. When you talk about the history of the game and how it's changed, it was Marvin Miller who was the guy. So I guess from that point of view, if you're sort of commemorating events and changes that have happened in the game, I guess he would be in it. I'm always surprised when I hear guys like that, or for that matter, you know, owners of teams. I understand they're owners, but
yeah, I mean they come up with these different categories, contributors and all this kind of stuff. You know, I'm not really a big fan of Hall of Fames and Halls of Fame in any sport. I mean, you know, they exist really to start arguments, and I find it tedious.
we have some breaking news, Gene, and we'll tell you about it when you come back, so don't change the channel, because we have another baseball player who just cashed in big time. We'll tell you who he is and where he's going right here on Pittsburgh CW when we return.